Hey guys, so we're here in San Francisco. I'm here with co-founder of Betterview, David Tobias. We're in their San Francisco offices. I'm really excited to be talking to these guys. If you haven't checked them out, make sure to check out betterview.net. They're doing some really interesting stuff. They got Nationwide as one of their investors. They partnered up with some really amazing people, and they have really cutting edge ideas, and they're really doing interesting things. So without further ado, David, thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Thanks for coming and visiting.
Yeah, it's a really cool offices, and it's always great to be here in San Francisco. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how it is that you co-founded Betterview?
Yeah, so I come from the insurance industry. So my father started an insurance inspection company 45 years ago. So going out, looking at properties for these insurers, figuring out where the risk was, how risky was it, was the place about to burn down, or what were the problems out there. And so I took over that business about 10 years ago, grew it quite a bit to about 500 inspectors across the country. And in that business, we had insurance companies, so big and small, coming to us saying they needed more and better roof data. And the traditional inspections just didn't cover that very well. They really weren't covering roof at all, and came to realize that roofs were a really big problem for the insurers. About 40% of all property insurance claims revolve around roof-related claims. So of all the dollars being paid out to property claims, about 40% goes to just fix and replace roof issues.
Okay, wow.
And so that was kind of the impetus to starting Betterview about 3.5 years ago. With my co-founder David Lyman.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we got going. I knew that there was a need for this type of data, and thought we could use technology to find some innovative ways to fill that data gap.
Okay. Interesting. And tell us a little bit about who you've partnered with in these endeavors. Yeah, so it started with roof. It's gone well beyond that now, and happy to talk more about that. But we're venture-backed startup here in San Francisco. So you mentioned Nationwide's an investor, Compound is another New York-based financial early-stage investor, Metaprop NYC, which is a real estate-focused fund, also investor as well, amongst others, Maiden Re, and the list goes on. But our main focus has been really selling into the insurance industry, and now kind of going more and selling more broadly into the real estate industry in general, around roof data, not just roof data, but the property data, right? Okay. Roof is a component of that, obviously, for real estate, but we can provide, so we're using visual imagery. We started really on the drone side, and now we focus mostly on using satellite and manned aircraft imagery. And we use AI or computer vision to pull data off of that and track buildings as they go forward. So, we can see what the condition is today, but also how that condition changes over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, right? And we can keep property owners up to date. So if you think of like REITs and other things like that have large portfolios of risk, we can use this aerial imagery and this AI to actually process that and monitor them remotely, going forward. And that's pretty powerful for a lot of these companies. Sure. Yeah. Wow. So so did you guys just hear this? So they started using drones, and then they went off to satellites, and then they're now using AI. So, for the average person in real estate, whether it's REITs or real estate developers or private equity real estates, AI is still not a term that's really used in the real estate industry. So, how is it that you guys have this AI? How did you come upon this technology?
Yeah, AI is like this broad term that people throw out, and everything now has AI behind it, right? But for us specifically, it revolves more specifically around computer vision. So computer vision, for just very simplified, is the idea of like training the computer to look for certain things and be able to tag that consistency with a level of accuracy. So we've trained the computer vision to determine, by looking at an aerial image, the material on a roof, for example, or the shape of the roof, or the amount of tree or vegetation overhang on the roof, and is there a pool on site, things like that we can pull off of this aerial imagery.
And then we use machine learning algorithms to track those changes over time and then score risk based off of that.
Okay. And do you feel, and we want to get to the competitive advantages, but do you feel like, the fact that you guys are in downtown SF in San Francisco as giving you a competitive advantage? Because, the costs must be prohibitively high, right? To launch a startup in downtown San Francisco.
There's pros and cons. I think the access to capital here is unlike anywhere else I've been in the world. Now, that being said, about half of our investors are New York based. That's primarily because there's a lot of real estate and insurance focused funds out there. But San Francisco is a great place to access new technologies and venture, funding and talent to a degree. That being said, our engineering team almost solely sits in San Diego. So we have another office in San Diego because hiring talent. So if you look outside our office, that's Airbnb right there. You guys can't see it, but through the window, right there, awesome. Adobe right next to it, Pinterest is right over there. Like literally, I can throw a rock to all these places. So we're competing against those people, and that's challenging. So San Diego has actually been great for us. So with our most recent hire, we have more people in San Diego than San Francisco now.
Okay, wow.
So I think what we see is more startups doing that. They have some semblance of like the management team here because of the venture capital that's all here, and then a lot of the engineering teams have to be somewhere else now because it's just too hard to hire in San Francisco.
Sure. Yeah, and San Francisco is one of the most expensive real estate in terms of real estate in the world.
Yeah.
As well, so probably even having offices here and everything that entails. But the fact that I guess you're surrounded by these amazing unicorns, right? It maybe also at the end they say proximity is power. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I think it gets you exposed to technologies and people that would be more difficult to get exposed to. I think also a lot of insurance companies and other big firms send their executive teams to San Francisco to meet innovative companies, and all the time we have insurers coming in here with their C-suite because they want to meet and see what's going on in San Francisco. So I think there's advantages, but you really have to look at what part of the team should be here and where, because of the cost. It's just it's become prohibitively expensive to do certain things in San Francisco now. Of course. Real estate and the cost behind it is a big piece of that.
Yeah, well, it seems like you guys are doing great with that, so good. And speaking about a little bit about the future of Betterview, like where do you guys see this going? Are there any new products that you guys are looking to launch?
Yeah, so we really started with this roof problem because it's such a big problem that insurers have, right? Yeah. And also there's a lot of money being spent by the insurers on data, around buildings and properties. But for us, we look more long term. We want to be the FICO score or the Carfax report for buildings and properties. Okay. That's our goal. We don't think that exists. It does not exist today. And that's a huge gap. If you go to get any sort of consumer credit or even go buy a new cell phone at AT&T, they're going to run a credit score on you, right? And that's an input to that process. Yeah. There is no equivalent of that, on the property side, right? And we think with these new data sources and all this geospatial data that we're accessing in the AI to analyze it, to turn that unstructured data into structured data, it presents that opportunity. And it's not just for insurance, but think about every real estate and mortgage transaction. We think that it needs that input to be, to speed those transactions and give more clarity on both ends. And so that's our goal longer term.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for the last 13 years as a real estate investor, and I could definitely say that it is needed. Yeah. It's definitely an untapped market. So hopefully, I'm based in Mexico City, and I see things in Mexico and also in some things in the U.S. There's a lot of people watching all over the place.
Sure.
So obviously you guys are in California. Yeah. Where else are you guys focused on?
Yeah. So we our technology today works anywhere in the United States. We are now starting to branch out. The nice thing about this aerial imagery is we have it worldwide. So we are starting to do some things in Germany and Poland.
We kind of go to where our customers are, right?
Yeah.
But we work with large reinsurers that reinsure things all across the world. So, we're getting pulled into some of these other countries, and our goal is to have the best, most up-to-date data on any property in the world, right?
Okay.
And so, again, using satellite, manned aircraft imagery, we have access to a lot of this data anywhere. So, it's not just a California thing or even a United States thing. We know that there's this data gap that can be filled, in any transaction around a building and property.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So as you heard, they're all over the world pretty much. They soon will be. And you mentioned your clients. You have some really impressive clients. Could you tell our audience some of your clients who you've been working with?
Well, yeah. So we have companies like Nationwide, and there's some others on our website. Feel free to look at them. Some of them can't talk about just yet, right? As well, but it's we're either working with or talking to almost every major insurer out there. We've also partnered with some of the biggest reinsurers in the world, like Munich Re. So Munich Re is right now the biggest reinsurer in the world, and they're a partner of ours. And so I think for us, we look at it as like insurance is sort of our mainstay, and now we're getting pulled more and more into more direct real estate as well.
Yeah.
So like large owner operators of buildings and properties in the United States are saying, can we use your product to monitor our buildings or our stores, right?
Yeah.
Where if you take a large store that is doing millions and millions of dollars of business a day, and if they have, say, a roof problem that makes them shut down even a quarter of that store while they fix it, think about the dollars that are lost there. So for dollars a week or dollars a month, they can monitor these properties very, very effectively.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And for me, one of the exciting things, as I'm here, in the Betterview offices, but as you said, right, with all these different startups all around the place here in SF, it comes to mind that real estate development, real estate investing is still done in such an archaic way.
Sure.
And it's really interesting to see companies, and exciting to see companies like yours that are now kind of taking real estate to that next level in terms of tech, in terms of pushing forward, and we're kind of seeing it with the Airbnbs, and Uber's had some effect on this. WeWork, Betterview, and then so many other companies. What do you see in terms of as we look at real estate? Where do you see a lot of the innovation happening as we look at the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I think a lot of the focus has been traditional. In the last 5 or 10 years has been around the customer acquisition side of it, right? So how do we get more eyeballs on properties? Sort of the Zillow, the Redfin, those type of things. I think what you're seeing is more venture dollars and more interest now in the infrastructure behind this stuff. So the data and the tools that actually get the transactions done, not just trying to we're going to get a little more efficient bringing, the real estate agent together with the person who wants the house.
Yeah.
There's been some really cool things around, visualizing the inside of a home for sale and things like that. But, that's just additive, right? And I think there's so much that can be done around making the actual transactions better. So making that mortgage transaction. I bought a house down on the peninsula about 5 years ago, and the amount of paperwork, right? It's crazy. And then everybody who's getting a cut along the way of these things, right? The title insurance and all these things that go along with it. I think there's just so much that can be done, and there's been more venture capital money going towards the infrastructure, now rather than just the customer acquisition side of it. And I think, for us, that's the exciting part of it, because there's so many inefficiencies on that back end transaction. Whereas, a lot of the customer acquisition stuff was just putting a new skin on an old way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So I think that's going to be really interesting over the next few years to see how that plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that I've been also seeing is 3D printing is actually finally, you're finally starting to see a little bit of that, especially in the U.S., Western Europe, and so hopefully we'll see a lot more tech coming out, of all these different companies and all these different places. But I absolutely agree with you. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was with somebody who was telling me that they believed that the famous cliche of location could be challenged now with driverless cars, right? So that could also be something interesting for everybody to look towards too. So I'd also like to broaden a little bit the conversation, because so you co-founded this company with David Lyman and with David Lyman.
Yep. Yeah, you got it.
And you co-founded this company, and you've learned probably so many lessons, right, in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We have a lot of the people watching this. They're entrepreneurs. They're starting out in the real estate industry. What will be some lessons that you could share with our audience in terms of some of the, as you look back, right, at Betterview, right? You guys mentioned in your website, right? There's creativity and there's successes, and you learn from your failures, and there's all these ups and downs. What are some of the things that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you to your point, you learn as much from the things that don't work, and sometimes you learn more from that than the things that work, right? Yeah. I am lucky in that my father was an entrepreneur, and I got to grow up around that. Now, having a venture-backed company is completely different than a family business, and so I've had a lot to learn there. Now, one of the things I think that's a crucial learning for me was you need a good partner, right? Like I was lucky. David Lyman had been through venture backing a company before, and exiting from that, selling that company and doing that, right? And so that's been critical for us, and knowing the ropes and fundraising and convertible notes and all the things that come along with that, right? So finding somebody that you can work with, I think, is key. I think, and David was saying the same thing. If we hadn't done it together, I think it would have been really hard. Probably Betterview wouldn't be here today. Where it was. I think that moving quickly and not getting too bogged down if something's not working. Now, you can't pivot constantly, right? Because if you're pivoting constantly, you never follow through on anything. And so I think we've really learned to you take signal from your customer. And one person says it, you note it, right? If the second person says it, then you start thinking maybe this is something I should be thinking about. And the third person, but you don't have time, right? So you have to move very, very quickly, especially when you're venture backed. Everybody wants to see results as quickly as possible. And I think a lot of people need to step back and listen to their customer. More than they do, and so I think that's something we really strive to do, and kind of a learning along the way. But I'd say most importantly, if you said what was one kind of big lesson, we had started as a drone company. That was our idea. We were going to use drones to capture these images around buildings and properties, and specifically roofs, because safer than putting people on ladders. A lot of roofs you don't have access to. And it was great. We did about almost 30,000 inspections with drones. We still do some. The reality is the market there is still pretty expensive. You have to put somebody out in the field to go fly the drone. And so we looked at that and said, okay, to get to the scale we want to, how can we provide some of the same data but without having to send the drone out? And that's when we started using satellite and manned aircraft imagery and these other things. And so I think, but we had been funded originally, as a drone startup, and I think you just can't be too proud to stick to, your idea if it's not the right idea. Take what you see in the market and really listen to it, and don't just say, well, but I really like drones, or drones are cool, or whatever it is. Don't be too proud to look at other ways to solve the problem. I think that's probably my biggest learning over the last few years, and go where don't chase every opportunity, but listen to your market.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is really great advice. I really appreciate that. As an entrepreneur myself, I absolutely agree with you. I was speaking to several very successful entrepreneurs in real estate, these last few weeks, and we had this debate, and I'd love to ask what you think. But there's this debate between the fact of knowledge and execution, right? Yeah. And so my point of view is that knowledge is great and it's very important, but at the end of the day, without execution, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that follow through is one of the most important things. The flip side of that is I see people all the time that come into the insurance space, and I mean, you probably see this in the real estate space, that don't really know the market. Maybe they have some cool technology or novel idea, but they don't know the market, so they're never going to be able to execute against it because they don't know how the processes work in that market. Like, what does the sales cycle look like, and who do I even sell to within a real estate firm, or whatever it is, right? And so I think that you need some of both. Now, sometimes you see people that have no experience in an industry come in and really disrupt that industry, and that can happen, but it depends on the industry. Like, insurance and the process behind insurance is really detailed, and if you don't understand how property is underwritten and claims are processed and things like that, you're going to have a hard time selling into that industry, even if you have the coolest technology, right? So, it's not a great answer, but my answer is you need the right combination of both. But if you don't follow through, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of my viewpoint. So I think it is tough for people to come into a market they know nothing about, though, if you're going to try to sell into it.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a consumer brand, you're building the next Instagram, maybe it doesn't matter because it's viral, right? But if you're going to be selling into industries that have been enterprise, you have to have some knowledge of the enterprise you're selling into.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great advice. And so, somebody who's watching this, they can go to betterview.net.
Yeah.
Where do you see Betterview 10 years from now? I mean, are you guys still at SF? Are you guys private, public?
I think that, look, if we can deliver on our vision of being the FICO score, the Carfax report for buildings and properties, I think, you're going to see us involved in every transaction around those buildings and properties. So, all the way through to, when you go to Redfin or Zillow, you'll see our, profile on the page for that particular building.
I've seen it, yeah.
And so, that's our goal, is to be, be part of all those transactions, whether that means we're public or private. We don't really think about that, but we know that there's this gap, in data that can be filled, and we can fill it. And if we do that successfully and we can provide value along the way, we will be part of all those transactions. And, there's a lot going on, every day. And, it's not just insurance, it's not just real estate, it's not just mortgages, it's everything revolving around these buildings. And, I think that's how we win, right? Is we really make it invaluable that this is something you need, and you need more than one time, a year or a month even, on those buildings.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, David, I really appreciate your time. This has all been very valuable, and I'm sure you guys will be very successful. Wow. So here's to meeting in a year or two from now, and you guys will be probably in a bigger office with much more success, and I'm sure it will be that case.
Yeah, thank you for visiting, and thanks to everybody who took a couple minutes out of their day to watch this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
appreciate it, David. All right, take care. Thanks for watching, guys.